Welcome back then folks to day 4 already of Special Projects Pack number 7, this time of course a returning face, but with a twist, because this is a car which personally I was never a huge fan of, not the car specifically, but any of these, the Chromes, the Stealths, it was just never my thing, and many of you know that from the Gran Turismo 6 days. This one though was one of the, if I recall correctly, not quite so bad Stealth models, up there with the 787B in terms of having some merit to it. This one is putting my own twist on it as well, so it's not just a replica, this is actually a Spec II. So it's my own evolution of the idea of an SLS Stealth, but improving the weight and improving the power. And when I say improving the weight, that is the biggest difference. If I recall correctly, in GT6, this weighed over 1,400 kilos still, which is pretty hefty. This one, 1,250, so more like a GT3 car in terms of its spec, and even in terms of power, it is improved as well, with that car sitting at also a GT3-esque, about 591, I believe it was. I've opted to actually increase that to 634, and as you can see, it actually still sits under 700 points, which could be interesting if you want to use it as a cash cow. Now, of course, I will have put on screen that you can grab this particular livery from the community by clicking the link in the description below and adding it to your library. Of course, a ton of people have done stealth liveries, so you could go for anyone you want. I personally like what this player did though. As far as the actual tuning, there are a couple of things that I fitted which you don't need necessarily. They were a carryover from a previous tune on this particular car. So we've got the stage 1 weight, which you do want. We've got the Club Sports section filled out with a stage 2 weight, the power restrictor and the ballast as well. As far as the semi-racing stuff, we've got the racing crank, the fully customised ECU. This is one of the things that you actually don't need. That was reminiscent of a previous build. You do not need to fit the supercharger. You do want the fully customised diff though. Stage 3 weight as well, as far as the racing stuff, the race filter, the race manifold, the pads, and I've actually opted for the carbon ceramics on this one. You don't have to do that. They are more expensive, of course, about double the price. So you could go for drilled or slotted. Doesn't matter too much. I went for the ceramics on this one, again as a carryover from the previous build, and since they were already fitted, there's no real point in buying extra ones just for the sake of it. So we've got the race clutch and flywheel, the fully customised suspension. I do have the active limited slip diff control as well, the fully customised transmission, and racing hard tyres, since it is, you know, a fictionalised but certainly race-esque vehicle in stealth form. As far as the extreme stuff, like I said, it does have the carbon ceramics. This, again, is a carryover, but I've actually left these parts on. So if you want to do exactly what I've done here, I actually am running the steering angle adapter and the hydraulic handbrake. So you may find a difference if you do or don't use those. So if you want it to be exactly like mine, and I would actually recommend trying it out because this thing is phenomenal through corners compared to what I was expecting it to be, then you may want to fit those. And for the ultimate section, we've only got the carbon prop shaft, which isn't too surprising. So it's fairly simple in terms of the build. It's not particularly crazy in any way. And of course, the Stealth already has its fans in GT5 and 6. I think it was in 5. Yeah, I believe it was a special car. I think when you first bought the game, you had to enter a code or something like that. So we've got the hards fitted. As far as the suspension, we've dropped the ride height to 95mm front and back, 4 on anti-roll, 33 for the compression on the dampers, 43 on the rebound, 3.15 for the springs, quite a lot of camber, race car territory with 3 front and back. As far as the toe, again, fairly hefty, especially on the front, 15 toe out and then 20 toe in on the back. Of course, for stability. As far as the diff, I would definitely recommend trying this out first, and then maybe messing around after to see if you personally find something that you prefer. For me, though, I was really happy with how this one turned out. 40, 40, and 20 is a really nice mix for this car, and you'll see in a second when it's around the track at Deep Forest, this thing flies through corners. In fact, it's a lot better than I expected it to be, and it was a lot better than when I first started building it. When I first tuned it with a basic, diff setup, it was okay, but it was a bit slip-slidey. Then I made a few changes, and it's become just a ballistic missile. As far as the tuning on the transmission, we've got an auto setting of 310, so up around, 200-ish miles an hour, or just under technically. It's more than enough for most tracks, but adjust that as necessary. The ECU and the power are untouched. As far as the weight, you want 52 kilos of ballast, which I've put all the way to the front. That's still only a 50-50 split though, because this car has more of a rear bias anyway. As far as the downforce, you cannot change the front. The rear we've got as high as it can go. And then for the other stuff here, you can see everything that we have fitted. So of course, as I said, we'll take it out to the track now to show you what it can do. And long story short, yeah, this thing is a missile. In fact, it's a lot better than I was expecting it to be. I thought it would be quick because, of course, it's an SLS, it's never going to be slow, but the fact that I had so much less weight, the fact that we were playing around with the diff, and in particular changing up what Mercedes had already done in terms of the weight distribution, you can easily mess up a car by doing stuff like that. I do wonder how much of an effect the steering angle adapter has had on improving this thing's cornering. I haven't actually tested it without that, but I'd be curious to potentially see if there is a difference. Regardless though, with it fitted, it is an absolute monster through corners, and in particular mid to high speed corners. In fact, the same kind of corners where a couple of other builds this time around were twitchy, like the M3 or the Maserati, that is where this car really comes into its own. And you can see, even from the low speed stuff, this swings through corners so quickly. And I think that steering angle adapter may really be helping out, because it's quite a big car. The SLS is pretty wide, it's pretty big, it's bigger than it looks compared to real life versus in the game. And so if you do decide to use it, of course it's got the nostalgia, being a Spec II with my own flair on it. It's changed up so it's not just the same old thing. And to me at least, it actually makes the Stealth feel a bit more competent than rather than just a black winged version of an SLS that isn't that lightweight and is fine in terms of power, but even then not that much more power than a standard SLS. So if you do decide to use it, I hope you have a ton of fun with it. Of course, you could definitely use it for racing since it's below 700 points. So yeah, give it a try, show the creator of the design some love from me, and of course stick around for the rest of the builds this week. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.